Hey everyone, welcome to All About the Joy, the private lounge. Cynthia's in the house, Rick Costa's in the house,
Hey.
and we are so happy to welcome our guest, Christy Holt. How are you?
Hello, hello.
We have been trying so hard to do this, and so I'm so glad. I think this is the perfect time, though. For whatever reason, I had to cancel with you once, and then you had a conflict, and it's all good. We're here now. I am just glad to have you on the show. I'm gonna start with the first question because this happiness hussy thingamajiggy had me floored when your people reached out to me. So I want to know where that comes from because it's hilarious and cool and memorable. And I want to know how you got into this.
Yeah, I love it too. Actually, kind of stumbled into it by accident. I was relaying a story to my cousin, and she kind of we're talking about someone who didn't really see me as all that positive. They kind of were. It was really a reflection of them. But my cousin kind of said to me in response to this, like, "Oh, you happiness hussy, you like, how dare you be so positive?" And I was like, "Oh my
Oh,
gosh, I'm stealing that because."
cool.
Yeah, what better to represent the mission that I'm on to spread happiness throughout the world and to do that with just a little side of sass. So, yeah.
I love that. It's because
That's
we're
so
all about the joy.
cool.
So it is kind of cool. I like that
Yeah.
with the side of sack.
Turning a negative into a positive. I like that.
Yeah.
And that's a cool tagline. Do you have that on your website? I didn't see that with a little side of sass.
I don't know if I do, but I have a bunch of I call them sweary AF meditations that I've created. And I think I probably use that within my copy of those pages of the different sweary meditations because they're like, Zen with a side of sass,
Right.
basically. Yeah.
That's so cool. And you can swear on the show because we all know. I mean, I don't swear. I never swear. Me
She
too.
lies.
I'm the one, closer to the Lord and everything. Sorry. Rick's gonna be like, "Ah." So how did you get into this field? How did you become an expert in the work that you do? Because I find that story far, far more interesting than I thought I would.
Yeah, I think like everyone else in the world, we just are on a journey, right? We're on a journey. We're going through stuff. We're having all of these experiences, and every single one of those experiences leads us to where we are today. And so, just like everybody else, I've been through some shit over the years.
Yeah.
And, I've been married and divorced twice. I finally figured out the relationship thing, which is a big piece of
Oh,
it.
wow.
I have struggled with anxiety and overthinking and overwhelm and perfectionism and people pleasing, just like everybody else, right?
Oh,
And
which I think
so,
we all do.
yeah, I mean, the conditioning is so heavy for especially women. And sorry,
Mhm.
Rick, this is, might resonate a little bit, but I'm going to talk to the women just for a minute here with the sort of good girl conditioning that we're meant to be nurturing at
Mhm.
all costs. Men on the flip side have to be, a good boy, but that looks different. That is more like being successful and winning at all costs, right? And being tough and
Mhm.
strong. Whereas women are almost conditioned to be the martyr in a lot of situations, right? We're kind of told that we should be nurturing and giving even if we don't have much left to give. And so that conditioning underlies a lot of the challenges that we often have as adults. And so I was dealing with a lot of that, and especially in my second marriage, I learned so much. First of all, that's where I became a parent, which I'll tell you what, I don't know if any of y'all have kids. I'm sure some listeners out there do.
They do. I don't. Yeah, they do.
They are both the greatest challenge and the greatest gift because we learn so much. Like, I don't think that I have learned as much from anything else as I have from parenting because it's a mirror
Mm.
reflection of
Mhm.
yourself, which
Is that a good thing?
Mhm.
Is that a good thing? I don't know, right?
it's a good thing when it comes to, promoting your growth, but it might not be comfortable a lot of the time. And that's where that challenge piece comes from. But back to really, the question of what you were asking in the first place is I kind of came to this like holy shit moment where I had this realization.
Mhm.
I'm the common denominator in all of these problems, right? And all of the things that I was perceiving, my relationship with my kids, with my everything that was going on around me, basically,
Mhm.
I realized, oh my gosh, it's me. And
Mhm.
that was for a moment a little bit like, kneecapping me. Like, oh my God, it's me. Ah,
No, well, I think so many times we blame everybody else, or we blame the
Mhm.
circumstances or
I
whatever.
do. Yeah.
So it's really hard to come to that realization. But okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, no, you're
I'm all like, go
absolutely
ahead,
right.
tell me
Yeah.
more.
You know, it's so much more comfortable to point the finger and blame someone else because
Mhm.
you know what that means? That means we don't have to change, which is very uncomfortable, right? And that's
Yeah.
Exactly.
essentially where I was before I hit that realization. I was pointing fingers at my partner and wishing he was going to change and hoping he was going to change and complaining to my friends that he wasn't doing what I thought he should be doing. But who was looking at me? Well, probably he
Right.
was, but we were both looking at the wrong places, right? And so when I realized, like, holy shit, like I'm actually the one who is in all of these things. I mean, first of all, I recognize that this could go a couple of different ways. Number one, you could go in the guilt and shame spiral on that one. And thankfully I didn't, because that's not helpful or productive.
Right.
Instead, I took that sort of epiphany, the like come to Jesus, holy shit moment, if you will. And I thought, I'm the one who can change this. Right. And that's where everything really started to shift, was when I started taking what I now refer to as radical responsibility for how I was showing up, for how I was responding, for how I was creating the experiences that I was having, because everything
Mhm.
goes through our own filter, our own perception. And if we start to recognize that, well, then we start taking back our power. And you never gave your power away. You can't, but you start to
Right.
recognize, well, hold on a minute. I'm actually, this is me. I'm creating this and I can shift it, which is much better than being stuck in that like blame situation.
Is that where you
Mhm.
made a decision to deal with, or to the whole self-love thing?
Yeah.
Right? You started practicing and you created something. I mean, I don't wanna jump ahead, but I was fascinated by how you came up with a create method or something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, so you're gonna get to that. All right. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
quiet.
Sure. Yeah.
She's just gonna be on the show talking herself. We're just gonna be like,
No,
listen to her.
ask
It's
away. Ask
actually
away.
this makes me think of people that they keep going from job to job to job, and then they're like,
Mhm.
yeah, they were terrible there, and they were terrible there, and they were terrible there. Be like, sweetie, it's you.
You.
It's
Right.
you. Everybody's firing. It's you. I'm sorry.
Yeah. In relationships, how people often say, like, it's not you, it's me. Like,
Mhm.
legit, though, it is like when you say it is you, because
Right.
you are the one who is creating those circumstances. And that can be a really big wake up call to start to realize, like, it's me, which means both you have to take accountability and responsibility for your behaviors, past and
Mhm.
present, but also
Mhm.
it empowers you to move forward in a way that you can choose, right? And really step into the life that you want, instead of sort of living in this like autopilot reactionary living based on your past experiences and memories. You can start to be in the present moment and choose a different path forward. So
I'm
yes,
a little
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I'm actually a little curious because I know you were saying, someone finally seeing that they're at fault, that
Mm.
they're that common denominator. How do you keep from spiraling and getting depressed and thinking, oh my God, it's my fault, and going down that bad rabbit hole rather than actually turning it around and making it a positive thing?
Yeah, I mean, great question, because a lot of people really do take that. The first thing I would say, it's not about fault finding. It's not about blaming anyone. It's just simply about recognizing what you've contributed. And in my personal story, I had a few moments, and I'll share one of them that I share actually quite often, which is, I'm going to use a metaphor. When you're driving home, you're driving in the car, but you're like off in dreamland. You're thinking about, I don't know, what you're making for dinner and the show you're going to watch later, whatever. You're driving. You get home, you don't remember stopping at a single light. Think,
Hmm.
how the hell did I get here? I don't remember driving, really, right? You were on
Happens to me all
autopilot,
the time.
right? And so that I had sort of a moment like that in my life where something happened in my relationship where I thought, like, holy shit, like, how did I get here? Like, what have I missed? What have I tolerated? What have I put up with? What have I contributed to get to this place where it was almost unrecognizable? And so all that to say, it's not about blaming yourself, because I could blame myself for tolerating things or putting up with stuff or contributing, but that wouldn't be helpful. Right. And so it's ultimately just about ownership and say, yeah, these are the patterns. And now that I'm aware of them, that actually puts me in this incredible position to move forward and choose differently. So it's not about fault or blame or guilt or shame or any of that. That will actually just keep you stuck in that spiral, in that negative, in those repeating patterns. And
Is that what you help people do? Figure out their patterns?
I mean, absolutely. It's part of the work. And I'll say that the catalyst to shift from that blame and guilt and shame game is self-compassion. It's being able to give yourself grace to say, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm only human. I didn't know then what I know right now, right? Which is where we get the guilt and shame from. We think I should have known better. Like, I failed because I didn't know.
Because I think I disagree. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, look, I should have started at the beginning. Coach Christy Holt.com, and that's Coach COACH, and Christy is CHRISTYHOLT.com. That's where you can find her book, Love Unstuck. Is that correct?
Yep.
You can find out so much information, CoachChristyHolt.com. Very important for everyone to know that. I have another question, but I almost don't want to stop you, but I did. So when you're helping people, is it only specifically for couples that you work with, or do you work with individuals? What is the prime persons that you want to work with on a regular basis?
Great question. I'm open to working with either. And because you mentioned it earlier, I do want to highlight, for me, I say this very quite often, and I have a podcast episode myself all on this topic. What you don't have is a relationship problem. What you do have is an identity problem. And most of our external problems, the things that we perceive as being an issue with something outside of ourselves, it all comes back to that filter, that perception, that reaction.
I'm sorry. I think you need to say that again a little louder for the people in the back. That was a great quote. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, Cindy? You know I had a moment. Say that one more time.
Yeah. You don't have a relationship problem. You have an identity problem. Right. And so ultimately, while I'm more than happy to work with couples and give them the tools and strategies that they need to, create a relationship together that is not just surviving, but truly thriving, most of this work is almost on the individual level. At least that is the foundation. And building a relationship that is one of self-love and self-acceptance and self-compassion, because after all, we are we're just all humans doing this thing and living one step at a time. Like I said before, I think we're always doing the very best that we can with the resources and understanding that we have at the time. And while it's easy to beat yourself up, and Cynthia, to just kind of really, drive home the point about the guilt and shame, awareness is a beautiful thing. It's not there to remind you that you're a fuck up and that you did things wrong and that you shoulda, coulda, woulda, whatever. It's there to illuminate a path forward, right? So instead of saying I coulda, woulda, shoulda done this differently, it's an opportunity for you to recognize that you now have a new perspective. Now you see things differently. And that is really empowering so that you can move forward with the new information, with the new perspective, and do something different, right? Instead of staying stuck in those repeating patterns. And I will circle back, but
I think it's great because I think it'll work not just with romantic relationships, but friendships too, and families, things like that.
I mean,
that's awesome.
I don't want to sound like I can fix all of your problems, because I know my scope and I know
you're in trouble now, because that's what I was like.
But I will say that I do firmly believe that a lot of the problems that we perceive in our experience can be rectified by really building that solid relationship with yourself. This does mean unlearning conditioning that's not helping you. It means unlearning all of the things that other people told you that you could, should, would be, that you didn't want to be. It means looking at those beliefs that you're carrying from wherever you might have picked them up. It means processing through unprocessed trauma. It means learning to hold space for your emotions so that they don't get trapped in your physical body. It means learning different skills and resourcing yourself so that you can respond, right? So you can regulate your nervous system and respond versus reacting, right? And this puts you in a really powerful position to deal with any kind of problems. And I do focus on relationships, but that's not to say that these tools are not going to help you in absolutely every potential relationship you have, including, for example, the relationship you have with your body or the relationship that you have with money, right? Everything is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to also just touch on, you mentioned the CREATE method. So I just wanted to kind of give like, just
Yeah, no, absolutely.
like touch on that, because that is my signature system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a linear system. It's not like step 1, step 2, step 3. It's an acronym, but all the pieces flow together because life is not linear. And so this is doing things like looking at your limiting beliefs, right? It is looking at the way that you set your day up and, creating a routine for success. It means looking at how you're fueling your body, how you're hydrating, how you're moving your body to stay in shape and physically feel good. It is about thinking and dreaming bigger. It's about tapping into the authentic you and really creating a vision for the life that you want.
So
and then it's taking all of that,
right,
and bringing it from the knowledge state where like, stuff and you're like, that's cool. And I know what I should be doing, and actually embodying those pieces so that you are having the lived experience that is aligned with that version of yourself that you really want to be. And I just want to say one last piece on this.
No, go right ahead.
You don't have to become someone else. You're already that you right here, right now. Just sometimes we forget how powerful we are. We forget that we're whole. We get duped into thinking that we're broken or something missing that needs fixing and healing.
Mm-hmm.
But truly what we need is to come home to ourselves and remember that we are whole.
I feel like you were, and I hope you take this from the loving place it's coming from, but I feel like you're a motivational, inspirational kind of speaker. And I don't want to use guru in a bad way, but your energy is infectious, and the way in which you speak really comes from a place of like love. I can totally
Yeah, you can feel it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you for feeling me and seeing me.
No, but it's so true. So I kind of love that. I have to say, this isn't what I expected. Am I wrong?
In a good way, hopefully.
No,
in a good way.
I wasn't. Look, it's so hard because when you don't know people, like, I'm lucky because sometimes we have guests on that I do know. But so far, the 3 people we've had on that I don't know, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best. Like, it's true though. This is such I hope you're enjoying yourself too at the moment.
Yeah.
But I have more questions, but I don't want to step on Rick or Cynthia.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, one thing you said to me that's just super fascinating is holding emotions in your body. And I believe people do that. And not only do they do that, it causes them to get sick. And they're like, why am I sick all the time?
Absolutely.
Because you're holding all this. You got to let it go. I mean, I know, cliche, but.
I mean, it's easier said than done, right? When we haven't been given the tools, we maybe haven't been modeled healthy emotional expression. This is not, it's something that's very healthy to do. And many people just don't know about it. And I want to just go back for 1 second, Carmen, because I am nobody's guru. And I love that you said that because I totally know what you meant. But I often do say I'm nobody's guru because I don't proclaim to have all the answers.
You do now.
I'm just a human on a journey like everybody else, right? And I'm really good at helping you find your answers. That's where the magic lies. It's not in someone else. Again, this is kind of this idea that I'm broken and I need fixing and I need someone else to tell me what to do. No, you don't. You just need someone to recognize you and to love you and accept you in your wholeness and help you find your truths, your answers, and your whatever you're meant to do and be and have within you. So yeah, I just wanted to to touch on that.
Yeah, but I just think you, okay, I hear you. I'm not going to fight with you on who you is, but,
And I don't feel like
but
you're offering cookie cutter solutions because, again,
Right.
everybody's different. Everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
Personality is different. Response is different. So, yeah, there is no one fits all, you know?
No.
yeah, but if she
Yeah.
has taken the time, I'm going to talk like you're not here. If she has taken the time and she has used her experience and she has studied this, like I think there's something to be said. This is your expertise, and I'm not going to allow you to kind of dismiss it. Like we have you on the show because I know you can help people. I
Yeah.
feel helped already. You know? So I hear you, but I'm just going to push back just a tiny bit. But okay, I know guru is a horrible word. I meant it
Yeah.
more like sarcastically, but
Yeah, I know.
you know, I think it's kind of look at. I'm gonna be straight up because now I feel really comfortable. I hate the word life coach. I
Mm.
cannot stand people who claim to be life coaches because I'm like, you need to have had a life. You know what I mean? Before you can call yourself a life coach. And people who are actually life coaches are people like, you know, Gandhi, but they would never call themselves, he would never have said that. You know what I mean? Oprah would never walk around saying that she's a life coach or, right? People who've had a life and have done something extraordinary, whatever. So I get annoyed. And so I'm always a little bit hesitant.
Yeah.
But here you are.
I don't call myself a
I
life
know
coach,
you
by the
don't,
way.
but I know, but this is what I'm trying to say. The
Yeah.
irony of ironies is you have focused, because I think this is important too as women, right? You have focused on something, you've become an expert in something, and you have a viable thing that you're a service that you're providing that we need, especially in this country right now. We really need it. And I think that is important. And
Yeah.
I won't push it down. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm just glad to meet you.
Thank you.
I
I'm having a
have
good time having chat with you guys too. So thanks
Yeah,
so
no,
much
let
for
me ask
inviting
you
me.
this question about people pleasing because
Mm.
some
Mhm.
people
Oh!
Oh, out.
when you were younger, you know. I was always
She's
the
my cousin, by the way,
yeah,
so
I
you know.
was yeah, cousin. People pleasing is something that has always disturbed me because I don't know where we learned that from. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you mentioned that somewhere in my research of you. So
Yeah, definitely. I actually even have a whole free resource on people pleasing, and I've actually a couple of podcast episodes dedicated to the topic. I think it's a really pervasive issue, and a lot of times people don't recognize that what they're doing is people pleasing. So I kind of want to start with a couple of examples just to make sure we're on the same page of what might look like people pleasing, because I think some people think, oh, like, I'm not trying to please other people, but subtly, you're
Yes, you
doing stuff because you want them to like you, right?
Mhm.
You're doing stuff because you want to be validated. You want to feel valued by someone else. You are maybe expecting a certain kind of response from someone. And so, in a subtle way, people pleasing can come off as a bit of a manipulation. Now,
Mhm.
before people freak out, because I said this before and people kind of freaked out about it, I don't mean like bad manipulation, like ill-willed necessarily. I just mean you're behaving in a certain way to create a specified outcome that you'd like to see happen, right? That is
Right.
manipulation in the
Right.
same way that me moving this cup over here is a manipulation, right? Trying to create an outcome.
Right.
I think for the most part, a lot of the people-pleasing tendencies come from childhood trauma. They come often from a parent-child relationship where generally, probably by no fault of the parent on purpose, again, no ill intent, created this response from the child realizing, ooh, I need to, behave a certain way in order to get my needs met, right? Whether that be food or water or emotional needs, whatever that might look like. And so, maybe you were, I don't know, called out for being bad, being too loud, being too needy, to whatever else, and you adjust yourself in response to that. Often this comes from childhood because, well, I mean, it could happen later as well, but because we don't really have the skills to move through those emotional responses to process them, and they end up stuck in our bodies, right? Like Rick and I were saying, they get stuck in your body, and you can have all kinds of things from disease to major illness, major chronic pain. You can have a lot of different outcomes. And sometimes it manifests smaller. And Gabor Mate has done some research showing some links between people pleasing and cancer. So you can go look that up. If you are a people pleaser, you might want to know that repressed anger and people pleasing can be a significant contributor to some of these serious illnesses.
Can I ask you a question though? Why is people pleasing bad?
Well, that's a great question. So to me, the real problem with it is not that there's no problem with wanting to do nice things for other people. There's nothing wrong with wanting a positive outcome. The problem lies when we take it so far that we are sacrificing our own needs in the process, and that we are acting in a way that is detrimental to ourselves. So I like to differentiate being nice, quote unquote nice, which actually means to be pleasing and agreeable, versus being kind, which is sort of stemming from love and can be both kind for others and yourself. Right. And because of this sort of manipulative energy, it's almost like people pleasing requires us to contort ourselves into something that we're not in order to get that outcome. Right. And when we're contorting ourselves and being someone that we're not, we create a dissonance within ourselves. We're not being authentic to ourselves. And we actually create distance from ourselves and the things that we really want by creating this energetic gap. Right.
My God, this is so deep.
Yeah.
We're all like so tuned in.
I gotta fly. I'm gonna kind of circle it back to the authenticity, like the authentic piece, because people might think like it's no big deal. I'm people pleasing and I'm exhausted. And I feel, what else am I gonna do? Like I gotta take care of my family and I gotta do all of this stuff. Right. But they're miserable, right? And this is actually the missing piece to your happiness. And it's not finding the next, I don't know, handbag or pair of shoes or whatever else, to make you happy in the moment. It's about really bringing you back to a state of inner happiness, which is truly your foundational beingness. Is your true nature is to be happy. And maybe if happy doesn't resonate for you, I often use happy, but maybe it's peace, maybe it's joy, maybe it's, I don't know, whatever other word really resonates with you, but like the state of feeling good, like you call it what you like, but this inner feeling of just, I'm going to be okay. I feel
and that
good.
brings you to authenticity.
Yeah. And chaos can be all around.
Right.
But you can still feel that solid wholeness, that peace, that love, that joy within yourself, and operate from that perspective. And that requires you to be in touch with you, to know who you are, to know what that feels like, to be in that true, that true nature of yourself. That gives you the ability to understand where you end and where other people begin, right?
Yeah, I like that part too.
And
what are you gonna ask?
Yeah.
I was saying it's kind of like when you're such a people pleaser, and I suffered from that too because my dad was very abusive, physically beat me and stuff. So I just didn't want to get beat. So I became a people pleaser. It's like, are you living for you or are you living for them? Because it's like, if you're always on guard and everything, like you can't relax, you can't be you because you're always making sure they're okay. It's like, what about you though? What about me?
Yeah.
Rick, do you think you're a people pleaser?
I'm aware of it, so I try not to be, but it's, it's in the back of the head there still.
Yeah. And that can really lead back to that identity piece, right? Where you are so busy performing so that you can create safety, in your environment and in your relationships, that you forget who you are, right? And then you start to ask, like, well, who am I? I don't know who I am outside of all of these performative things that I'm doing to create this experience, which I don't even like, right? I don't even enjoy it. It's just feel like I have to.
I think I'm performative at work every single day. There's no doubt about it. Every single day. I'm so good at it. And I'm very manipulative. I tell people all the time in my office, I'm like, listen, stop going to him this way. You need to manipulate the situation. Like I say it straight up, because if not, we're just going to end up fighting with this man, right? One of my clients, whatever. God, I hope he never listens to this. But I mean, I think there's also that part of it too. Like everything you said, there's so much layers there. but it's all true.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a question. So going back to the emotions, um, you said you work with couples and individuals. Do you ever see a better response from men or from women? Or is it just kind of different because, it resonates with everyone differently?
I think it's completely individual. And honestly, I think the key thing when looking at like how someone's going to respond is just their readiness and their willingness, because the truth is you will
Mm,
not change anyone else. Like you can hope and wish and dream for it all damn day long. The only
yeah.
person that you can change is yourself. And so this is probably very annoyingly an underlying theme of my work is that you can't change anyone else. So I will talk to you about those, circumstances that you may be experiencing, conflict with your partner or feeling a certain feeling towards your partner. And I'm just like, it's you. It's you at the heart of it. It's you. And
My
so,
God.
I know that's so annoying to hear. Like, oh my gosh, like my partner is narcissistic and it's so toxic. No, listen, that may be, but we're going to talk about you right now because talking about them is not going to change your circumstance. And
You know what?
trust me, girl, I know from firsthand experience. I did this for years.
I can't
Like,
wait
been
to
there,
send
done that,
those.
got the t-shirt. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you that I want you to see something different in your outcome. It's going to be you who's going to have to decide to do something different.
Okay. There are two
Mm.
people who want to see that. I cannot wait to send it, to send them the link. Cannot wait. I love that because it's true. And I say a similar thing when it comes to work. I'm like, we can't change
No.
this producer. We cannot like we have people that we work with that are just they've been there for 30 years. They're idiots. You know what I mean? Like they're gonna we there's nothing I can do to change them. And I'm like, we
They're
need
set in
to
their
work.
ways.
Well, but I'm not going to fix somebody who is like in their 60s. Like, and it's not my job. Like,
You
it's not my
can't,
job. Yeah.
without their permission,
Well,
you
and it's
can't
just
change
a
them
waste of energy because
for
I'm like,
sure.
how can we do what we need to do over here so that we can get it done and
Yeah.
move it through because all we can do is change the way we do things. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah. And how do you change how you respond to difficult situations and stubborn people or people that
So
see things
saying
really
F
different
you
to you?
isn't good. Like just F you. That's not good.
It depends on the outcome that you want to have, right? I do have a podcast episode speaking about conflict because it is something that people really encounter a lot. And I
Mhm.
think that a few key takeaways from that, you can obviously check out the episode about conflict from my
Conflict
podcast.
resolution. Yeah.
Yeah. It's called Advanced Techniques for Conflict Resolution, I believe, or something like that. I don't know. Don't quote me on the
Oh, I
exact.
didn't write down the whole thing, but yeah, I listened to it. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, having your intention for the interaction is really important, right? Because maybe fuck off is the right response if you actually want to decisively end that connection.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the right response. But if it's your partner and you don't really want to spend money to get a divorce, maybe that's not the best solution, right? So maybe in that case,
Good
you're
point.
going to, go into the conversation and address it from the lens of love and compassion, from the perspective of an intention of maintaining connection above all else, right? Remembering in those situations that you're on the same team, right? That you're not fighting against each other, you're problem solving together
Mhm.
as a unit so that you can move together stronger. So yeah, intention really matters. And
Yeah.
really keeping that in mind is really important so that you can move through those difficult conflicts and get the outcomes that you ultimately do desire.
Nobody can control somebody's reactions. You can only control
No.
your own.
You control how you respond. That is you in your power, you controlling how you respond. Like, you know what? I'll tell you, I have had many opportunities as of late to really witness my own growth from, the last 10 years or even the last 5 years. And it's amazing to have that new understanding of like, holy crap, like how far I've come, because I have had circumstances recently where I think back like, ooh, like 5, 8, 10 years ago, me would not have handled that well, right? I would have been devastated. I would have been an anxious mess. I would have been overwhelmed and right in a spiral, which is actually what my first book was about. It's about stopping the spiral so that you can respond rather than just react. And now I can sit there and be like, okay, like that's really interesting. Other people's emotional, defensive outbursts or upset or challenge it, like I know where I end and I know where they begin. So I don't take their stuff on. I can hold space for them, right? I can validate their experience. I don't have to fix it. That's not my job. My job, if I'm going to have a job at all here, would be to listen, right? To hold space for them, to create an opportunity for them to problem solve their own problems with some support, maybe with some questions, right? And my website is Coach Christy Holt, but I really see myself more as a mentor, and I call myself a happiness and love guide, because coach feels like telling people what to do, and that's really not how I roll. I'm a firm believer of try this on, right? Try on this idea. Does it fit? How does it feel? What's different in your life if you were to try this on and wear it around for a little bit? And if it doesn't fit, if it feels bad, you take it off and try something else on, right? So I'm a firm believer of that approach, and really just being there for people and allowing them the space to feel what they're going to feel, to express what they're going to express, and holding my own boundaries for me, right? I'm not about to tolerate mistreatment either. This is also very closely linked to the people pleasing, is boundary setting, because people pleasers generally don't have no boundaries, right? They're just like, oh, do whatever you like. I don't know how to deal with you. Or if they do have boundaries, they have a lot of instances maybe of people just trampling all over them, and they're not sure how to enforce them. They're not sure how to stand up for themselves. Yeah, I mean, boundaries are really this important, pivotal piece that interlock with the people pleasing, because often people who are people pleasing do not have a strong understanding of what their boundaries are. They do not know where they end and where other people begin. They can end up taking on emotions and problems of other people's, like it's their own, carrying this heavy weight. And instead, if they can learn to set healthy boundaries, it is actually a beautiful gift, not just for other people. It's not just about eliminating the problems and walling people out and protecting yourself. Boundaries are an invitation inward. They are a guidebook for those around you, to show them, to give them directions on how you will most feel loved, respected, and honored. And those who really, truly want to be in a deep relationship with you are going to truly value knowing what it is that really feels good for you and what doesn't, right? So that they can act accordingly.
But people don't, it's so funny because I say this differently than you do, but people like want structure. People don't like when you show them your boundaries. Some people will accept it, the people that want to be in your life, but I know for a fact people that I gave boundaries to and said, I will not tolerate this, are mad and angry and move away. And I'm like, to me, that's a blessing.
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing.
Hello, easy button, right? And this is the thing I think people most worry about setting boundaries, because they don't want to lose people and they don't want to hurt people or offend people. But the thing is, most of the time, those are the very people we really need the freaking boundaries for, right? Because they're the ones that trample all over our boundaries and mistreat us. And then we feel helpless to respond to that. The truth is, if we just set clear boundaries, and I also, just for anybody listening that's like not totally clear on what a boundary is and isn't, I want to give an example. Okay. You can't do that is not a boundary. That is a preference. And that is a request, maybe at best. Probably not going to go over very well, because actually you can't do that really brings up like this counter will in people. They're like, the fuck, I'm not. So then they like even more want to do it. So you can't do that, or anything like that is not a boundary. Now, an example of a boundary would be, if you raise your voice when we're having a conversation, I will remove myself until we can speak calmly. This is about you and your response. So I think a lot of people are like, I set boundaries and people just don't listen. Are you setting a true boundary, or are you just telling people your preferences and then getting mad because they don't see the preferences the same? Because you're not going to control that person. You can let them know your preference, and that's fine too. But we have an expectations that everybody else is going to be like, oh, I see things exactly the same, and I'm going to do exactly what you want. That would be crazy, because we wouldn't want, to be in that flip side where someone tells us how to behave all the time.
Right.
So
But I want to go back to this part that you said where, oh man, I just had a moment. Oh, you were just saying something and it just flashed in my head. We're gonna have to edit this out too. No, I'm just kidding. No.
we're real
But-
humans here.
no. When you talked about the reason why people don't like to set up boundaries is because they're afraid of losing people. I think that's a powerful thing because I remember having a conversation. Rick, you and I had a conversation about this kind of same thing with individuals in our lives that we needed to cut out. And it was a hard conversation. But I think a lot of that is, but if I don't keep them, then I'm losing friends.
Yeah.
I'm losing people in my life to interact with.
Yeah.
It's
We
a
get
tough-
really
Another great
worried about
example
that.
too is I know distinctly because it hit me hard. You were talking about Christy, Thanksgiving and setting boundaries at that time, and that's family, you know, and it's not like associations or like it's like you kind of almost sort of can't avoid them. And it's like, how do you balance? I don't want to tick them off, blah, blah, but you talked about Thanksgiving as an example, we're talking about boundaries, and that really hit home for me. If you remember, I don't know, talking about that, but that for me hit home.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard because often we don't want to set boundaries because we don't want to damage the relationship. But I think that means we're coming at boundaries from a warped sense because boundaries aren't meant to be, you can't do this to me and you're going to ruin our relationship by doing this. It's simply stating, if you do this thing, I'm going to respond in this way just so that it can honor my needs. It doesn't make you an asshole. I mean, sometimes I guess maybe it does.
It does, right? Well, because they don't want to accept
Okay,
them. They don't want to
but
accept that. Right.
you know, some people gonna be how they're gonna be. And instead of getting upset that they're not being how we want them to be, we just manage our response to it, right? We decide this is the action that I'm going to take. And so for Thanksgiving, we don't want to maybe spend all day doing something with family. We want to limit it to a couple of hours. We don't say, I can't believe you're having dinner and you can't have that and you can't tell me what to do and I'm not going to do that. You just say, you know what? I would be happy to come for 2 hours, after which I need to go home and have a nap because we have another commitment in the evening. And that's just what I need for me. And it's really hard for people to come up with a lot of counter will when we frame it that way, right? It's easy when we're like, well, you can't, you know, you got to do this and I can't stand it when you do that. And these are my preferences. Of course they're going to come back. You would do the same, right? If someone started telling you can't do something, you kind of want to do it.
But it is
it's kind of like, oh, how you say it.
yeah, but is this kind of placating having toxic people around you, even though you don't want them around you? Like, I mean, you're saying you're still going to go put yourself in a situation at Thanksgiving is a great example. You're still going to go put yourself in a situation.
I mean, maybe you're not.
But he just said it's very difficult, so he has to.
I mean, that's like a very personal decision. Choice. But I would say if you had a real toxic family, I think it would be fully within your right to say, it's in my best interest to honor myself and not be in the presence of these people.
Because that's what I've been doing for years. Thank you. I just wanted to be validated. Okay, I want to make sure this was on my side.
You got to listen to your heart, right? You're the only one who knows what's really best for you at the core of it. And yeah, we can lose track of our identity and we can lose track of what's really good for us because trauma is less about the severity of the trauma itself. It's more in the processing and how we moved through it afterwards and the completing the cycle of trauma so that we can move forward and not carry that trauma into, you know, our future experiences and interactions. But you have to stand up for yourself because like, I think that people get really sucked into this idea of like, well, if, you know, unconditional love, I fully believe unconditional love completely exists. And I have a lot of people that would argue with me that you can't do that because what if people mistreat you? Well, I would argue that that is not unconditional love any longer.
Exactly. Right. You answered the question. Right.
Unconditional love does not exist apart from boundaries. They come part and parcel together because unconditional love goes both ways, right? It's respect. And I think that the people that came at me when I said something along that effect, like, you know, unconditional love is real. The people that kind of came at me were like, well, like, what if he's being toxic? Well, then I would say you're not unconditionally loving yourself for remaining in that
In
circumstance.
that relationship. Yeah.
Right? This has got to go both ways. We both need to set healthy boundaries with one another. We both need to openly communicate those things, and we both need to come at it, yes, with standards. And yeah, we're probably going to have some expectations, but if we can find someone who we can love and accept as they are, as a human being, and really approach, being together as a partnership where we're learning and we're growing together, and generally approach one another with loving kindness and minus the assumptions and judgments, and just do life together, we can really do this in a very peaceful way. And we can.
Yeah, but I think it
unconditional love.
sounds good, but I don't think it sounds great. But the truth is it's not that easy. Like, even if, because people get into those moments where they cross those boundaries, or they don't accept that person's boundaries, or but that's where you step in and maybe try to help people, right? Like, where do you step in to help couples or people dealing with their family members or whatever? How do you step into it, I guess, is the question.
I'll say this really ties back to what we talked about earlier. I will step in when you are ready to make a change and you're not quite sure how to go about it. Maybe you recognize, like, I'm not here to help people that are like really stuck in the shit, and I have a huge amount of compassion for them. But what I have observed from my own experience firsthand is that when you're buried in the muck, you are not looking to change. Right? You were kind of buried in the muck. And so I want someone who's at least reaching out the muck, ready to say, right, I'm going to take responsibility for myself. I'm going to do the things that I can to change. Maybe they've had sort of a bit of a realization that this attempts to change everyone else in the circumstances is growing tired, right? It's proving futile. They're kind of fucking over it. Yeah. And they actually want real change, and they're willing to do that. Not that easy part. And I'll say it doesn't have to be that damn hard. It feels like, and when you're in the muck, it feels like it's impossible.
Because you can't see.
You just can't see
possibility.
And so, just need someone to help have some eyes for you, to have some belief, to hold some space for you and some hope for you.
Can we talk about unconditional love again? Because I'm one of those people that I think everyone believes that they practice unconditional love, but we do not. It's very rare. It's very rare, unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's my perspective, because I don't think we actually practice it ourselves. And I think it goes back to what you're saying. You can tell me if I'm wrong. It's because we don't know ourselves well enough, and we don't have any boundaries, or we don't set those up. I mean, tell me what you think, because that's why when you said unconditional love, I was like, because people always say that, but it's not true.
Yeah. And like I said, it's not, unconditional love is not without any sort of boundaries, or, you still want to match the people that are closest in your life. You still want them to be a good match, right? A good alignment for you. But I think unconditional love can be extended to other people. And it's not like you're saying, hey, everything they do is perfect and great, and I agree with it. That's not unconditional love either. It's just simply saying they're having their experience, right? It's born of every moment of life that they've lived up until now, and you will have never any idea of what that all entails. And so just being able to say, like, I really can't know what has led to this person being in this place right here and right now, and just having compassion. Like, even the wildest people, I can still look at and be like, oof, like, what have they been through that have led them
I can give an example of the perfect kind of unconditional love. I can. So I know of a father whose daughter was a drug addict, and he had to make the decision for the family to let her go. And it took to let her go because she'd been in rehab. He's helped her so much or whatever. And people were so upset with him. Other people in the family were so upset with him. And I remember thinking, like, see, that's unconditional love, because he knows there's nothing else he can do. He has to let her do what she has to do, and just let her know, I'm here when you're ready. Yeah. And it's the weird thing, because we think it's the opposite. Like, he's supposed to be and I remember thinking to myself, like, I don't think I could. I don't even got no children. And I was like in pain watching this happen, but it was the right thing to do, because oh, thank God, or whatever you believe in, universe, she, you know, she's fine. And I think she's 20 years sober.
Wow.
Incredible. You know,
And drug free, I
sometimes,
should say, not sober. I guess sober is for both, but you know what I
yeah.
mean. Drug free. 20
I mean,
years or something. She's just celebrating.
sometimes what we really need is someone to frickin' trust us to do what's right for us,
Mhm.
right? And I'll okay, well, guilty confession here. I love me some reality TV like Love is Blind, and
I
we're
don't
currently
watch
watching Temptation Island. Okay, I love this shit because I love watching humans human. It's fascinating. Okay, but
Oh,
before I dive into that, I digress because I just wanted to also say that unconditional love is not something that you just create for people out there. It starts within. And if you
yeah,
do not feel unconditional love and acceptance for yourself, you're going to have a hard fucking time
that's true.
experiencing it when it comes to other
Mhm.
people. Because everything we think about other people is really a mirror reflection of what's inside of us. Everything we witness in them is a mirror reflecting it back to us so that we can see and learn about ourselves. And so we'll leave that there. Unconditional love starts within. So if you can learn to unconditionally love and accept yourself, you will start to see unconditional love and acceptance play out
Everywhere.
in the world around you.
Hmm.
The reality TV, I just find people so fascinating. I love watching them just kind of do their thing. And I don't actually know why I was going down this road, but where was I going to go with that?
Love is Blind is one of them you were saying.
Yeah,
And
no,
you said you like watching people be human. You
I
like
just think
watching
it's so,
humans.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
because I
so,
was talking about the
yes.
father. Yeah. Okay.
It was the trust piece that I wanted to say. What I observed on Love is Blind is that the parents that felt really controlling over their child potentially getting married on this quick timeline and they're, about it, there were problems in most of those relationships. And of course, there's a problem coming when the people who claim to love you the most don't trust you to know what's right for you. And I get it. It's a crazy scenario to talk about getting married in like 6 weeks or however, whatever. It's a very interesting scenario. But what really struck me as a parent is that if I was in this situation, my kid was on this show and I was the parent in here, the thing that I want them to know the most is that I unconditionally love and accept them and trust them to know what's right for them, period. Not to proclaim that I know, because because I'm older. I know what's right for them in their heart. That seems preposterous. So that's what I wanted to say is it's really this trusting people is a big piece of what I do because like I said, I don't think that people are broken, that they're, there's something wrong with them. I trust them to know they may have just gotten off track. And by trusting them to know at the heart of things, we can tag team together and find their way.
You are a much better person than I am.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
right? You already know. I'm like, okay, we interviewing you, so I'm gonna be kind. You know what I mean? No, I love where you're coming from, though. It's so much to think about. It really is.
Yeah.
So, Rick, were you gonna say something?
I'll never forget my father, again, the abusive one, said, let's say in the future we were mad at each other and we didn't talk for 20 years. And then I saw you on the street. Somebody had just beat the crap out of you. You don't think I'm going to go there, pick you up and help you and bring you to the hospital if I need to? Why? Because you're my son. Like, that's unconditional love. I think the parent-child is the best example. It's just like, you came from me. How could I deny you and all that? But yeah, I believe in unconditional love.
I don't know if that's unconditional love. I disagree.
It can be severely limited
I don't
by
know
the amount of love we have for ourselves, right? And I think that my argument to people who say that I don't believe in or I haven't felt it or I haven't been in that experience on the receiving end, my invitation is to go deeper into the love that you have with yourself. Because the more you can feel within yourself, the more you can recognize and feel and experience this love from other people.
We're going to get into a second hour, which we cannot, but let me just unconditional love, and the man is beating his son on a regular basis, right? Like it's a little too twisted. You can't call that unconditional love, Rick. I'm just sorry. I know the story of your father, right? You've talked about it on the podcast. So this is he was an abusive man. And we understand he had a lot of alcoholism issues. This is all on our podcast. I'm not revealing anything that he hasn't shared. And to me, it's like, no, that's not unconditional love. That's something else. You know what I mean? It might be a bond between son and father and some duty or whatever, but if you love someone, you don't hurt them that way. And it's not, and I've said this before, the physical pain isn't the issue. It was the emotional
Yeah.
pain you went
So,
through that we are still dealing with on our podcast on a regular basis. You know what I mean? Which I'm fine with, but that's why I know it's so not unconditional love. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's my argument.
And I don't think that any of that negates what I'm saying, because I don't think everyone is creating or experiencing unconditional love or extending it.
I'm not arguing with you.
Yeah.
I was arguing with
Yeah.
him, but I know
Yeah.
what you're saying,
I
but
think,
I'm trying to tell Rick that's not unconditional love. Don't get it twisted.
that moment maybe that you were giving as the example may be some element of unconditional love with the father-son bond.
Mhm.
And I think everyone is capable of experiencing and feeling and giving unconditional love. Many people are limited, like I said, by the way that they connect with themselves really prohibits them from creating and giving and treating other people with kindness, even because they're not treating themselves with kindness, right? I have so much compassion for both parties in situations of abuse, because both people are really struggling. And I'm not by any means condoning the behavior. I am not. It's not acceptable, and nobody deserves to be treated that way. But in order to be the abuser, you have gone through some shit.
Mhm.
And you haven't healed it. And I have a great deal of ever led to that moment. And for the person on the receiving end, of course, I have a huge amount of compassion. And I wouldn't say like, oh, just blanket that falls under any sort of like unconditional love. I think everyone's capable, but not everyone is actually living it. And that's hard. It's definitely hard to watch in those situations.
And because I love you, Rick, I and again, I'm not saying I'm right, but I won't keep quiet when I hear you lying about some. No, you're not lying. That's the wrong word. But when I hear you, I was really angry when you told me this whole story, when you talked about this. Cynthia, you were on the show too, and we had this whole conversation about this. And I was pissed because I didn't know to the extent the abuse. You had, little by little or whatever. But I would not be your friend if I didn't tell you the truth. And I'm not going to let you give him another pass. I'm not. Because I think I think unconditional love. This is where you and I may disagree, and you're the expert on this, so and you're the person we're interviewing. So
I don't even have all the answers. So this is a good
The
conversation.
thing about unconditional love is that everybody wants it. Very little people practice it. It's really hard. Unconditional love is so hard. It is being able to let go of your child who is falling through the cracks and trusting, like what you said, that they're going to get through it. Like I've never been a parent. And even when I said it right now, I get like tingly, like, oh my God, like I can't imagine being able to do that. That to me is rare. It's not as often, but I do agree with you that if we practice it more, if we recognize it in ourselves, we can probably see it more in other people. That I agree with. And I'm going to work on that.
And I think that ego is a big piece that keeps us from having that experience, because we want to be right. We want to, express ourselves in this way of being right and holding up all these things, but that's a protective measure as well. And so if we can start to dissolve the ego, this idea that we're separate and apart from all of the things that were broken, that we have to survive by all of these means, we can really just like sit in this state of being, this stillness of being here right now and observing what's going on around the world and not having to react to it, not having to control it. Like that ego is like that need to kind of control the outcomes, right? Like this father I'm sure he wanted to control the outcome. He wanted his child to be safe and healthy and strong and all of these things and at peace. But sometimes we have to let go of control and trust that things are going to work out. And that's like an ego battle, right? Because our ego says, well, we need to be in control so that we can feel safe.
That's me all the time. My ego is right here, in case y'all can. My ego is right here. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm
It's a
working
trap,
on it.
though. It's a
Hey,
trap.
I admit my I don't even think it's a weakness. I think it's something to be working on. But I
Yeah.
think there's also the other side of it where you lack some ego. You know, like you got to have a healthy balance of everything. I don't think
Yeah.
ego is bad. You know,
Listen, when I'm saying ego, I don't mean like egotistical, conceited at all. That's really the personality trait kind of apart from the ego, but the ego is kind of like this safety mechanism that's driving the bus, right? That wants us to feel like we're in control because that makes us feel quote unquote safe. Ultimately, it wants to keep us in what is certain and what is familiar more than it wants us to actually feel good or have positive experiences. So it'll keep us in that safety zone,
so it
even to
keeps
our
us
own
telling
detriment.
ourselves a story that may not be true. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
I
And
understand
having
that.
coping mechanisms to keep us reacting in the similar ways because similar feels quote unquote safe.
Better. Yeah.
It doesn't actually mean it's
Huh.
good for you, right? We all know, we've all had experiences like this where we will be in a pattern and it's very familiar. It's very uh, certain. We know what the outcome is going to be, but we don't want that outcome. We actually know we want a different outcome, but we have a really hard time breaking that pattern because it feels kind of safe in the way that we know what to expect. Whereas stepping outside,
Mhm.
moving outside our comfort zone and trying something that has an uncertain outcome feels very scary, which is where a guide and a mentor or a coach or a therapist or someone who's been
Walk
through
you
some
through.
stuff can really just be there. I like to say I'm like a mentor for like the whole ass human. I'm like the link arms and we'll do this together because I don't have all
Right.
the answers. You do, but I'm here to walk with you to help you go through this journey and uncover those things that you're meant to uncover and step outside your comfort zone, just like a little bit at a time, baby steps, so that
I
it can
love
start to
this.
feel
So
more comfortable.
now I want to talk a little bit about your book because we're past the hour mark. But your book, we can get it at your website. But is it also on Amazon? I think it's also on
Yeah,
Amazon, right?
it's pretty well all over the place. You can
It's all
find
over
it
the place,
all
right?
over the place. You can find a whole bunch of links for it at loveunstuck.com. There's
Oh my
like a
God, I'm
thing
sorry I
you've got
didn't
the
promote
links.
that website.
No, that's okay.
Loveunstuck.com as well as
Yeah.
coachchristyholt.com.
Yeah.
Okay. And Love Unstuck is primarily about what we just discussed right now, right?
It's about creating healthy and happy relationships from the inside out. And so it is your manual to loving yourself back to life so that you can then build on that foundation to create incredible thriving relationships with other people.
Will you come back on the show?
Yeah,
We're
I
gonna
would
have to
love
have you back
to.
on. And Rick's gonna shoot me later, but I know. We can edit it out if you want. I'm not gonna. Um, This has been so much fun and so interesting. It was not
Yeah.
what I was expecting, and I love when that happens.
Good.
I love it. Because
Totally curious what you were expecting, but we'll save that for
in the
another
green
time.
room. No. Thank you for being on the show. And again, we'll have you back on. This was so much fun.
Mhm.
Everyone, again, please visit loveunstuck.com, coachchristyholt.com, and we will be back again next week as always. And remember, at the end of the day, it really is all about the
All
joy.
about the joy.
Bye, everyone. Bye. Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.